but his administration backed affirmative action. Nixon made his name as a conservative but presided over the creation of the Environmental Protection Agency and expansion of the welfare state. And just like Nixon, the narrative presented in this video contends that Trump will talk a conservative pro-America talk while handing billions in contracts to Israel in a manufactured trade war with China. His aides and associates will talk an anti-communist talk.
China is in control of everything in America, but it's definitely being directed from China, and they plan to kill Trump in March. I thought I would just let people know that Fort Bragg's preparing for that.
Whilst facilitating the rise of Greater Israel in the same manner Nixon facilitated the rise of China. If there is one thing you will easily take from this documentary, is that Israel is a Russian client state, not an American one, and though the levels of control are debatable, Israel has always been a Soviet-era invention and backdoor to the West. Now, why haven't I heard about these Russian Soviet-era spy rings in Israel? No CNN or Alex Jones coverage here. And with Israel playing such a central role in the US high-technology industry, filled with Soviet-era missile and aeronautical engineers, you can bet Elbit Systems, who is building major componentry for Lockheed's crown jewel, the F-35, is not full of alleged Jews from Yemen, Morocco, or Ethiopia. It's full of alleged Jews from Russia. Ask Israeli Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman, an alleged Jew from Russia who is widely considered a Soviet-era KGB asset by various commentators in Israel. Ask him. He loves the F-35. Even WikiLeaks revealed how close he is to Putin. But don't worry, my US taxpayer friends, I'm sure Lockheed and the US Defense Department considered all these things before handing over the best US taxpayer dollars could design and build to Israel. And Russia. And China. And Iran. And pt2 India. You get the picture. No wonder Putin is smiling, as is President of China Xi Jinping and even Rouhani in Iran.
My administration is reclaiming America's heritage as the world's greatest spacefaring nation.
And now, with Trump under orders from his handler Bibi, building a US Space Command without the grassroots support of the DoD and Secretary of Defense Mattis, you can bet the Israeli space industry is going to move along in leaps and bounds. And coincidentally, so will the Russian high-technology space sector. Well, what do you know? So is the Chinese high-technology space sector. They sure did hit the trifecta with those close relationships with Israel, didn't they? You better hope Mattis is everything the mainstream media alludes he is, a break or preferably a smack to the head of Bibi's boy Trump. Maybe Alex Jones will tell us all about it, Israel that is.
Who are we preparing to go to war against or defend ourselves from?
Senator, the Secretary of Defense outlined in the National Defense Strategy the challenges that we face. Part of the emphasis in the strategy was the shift from a focus on terrorism to great power competition, with a particular emphasis on the long-term challenges of China and Russia. It refers to both of those as opportunities for peaceful competition, deterrence, and then the ability to prevail in a conflict should we have to. The strategy is both a classified and unclassified option, but it lays out and goes through the challenges that we face.
So we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars defending ourselves from China, while major corporation after major corporation is shutting down in the United States of America and moving to China. Anything incongruous about that?
This is an emergency transmission from deep in the heart of Texas. The U.S. resistance against a global corporate combine empowered and funded by Communist China, allied with the big mega banks that set up Communist China in 1949. The Communist Chinese have taken control of U.S. telecommunications infrastructure. The Communist Chinese have taken control of Hollywood. The Communist Chinese have taken control of the main universities. This is all confirmed. This is not a drill. Big tech in Silicon Valley is almost completely run by the Communist Chinese government.
No, not quite yet. He's still on the Chinese communists. You never know. He may take the next step. And finally, what of America? Where will America sit at the end of all this, and how did it get from world superpower to teetering on the edge of economic and societal collapse?
You have a city, Boston. You have other cities and so many other cities. But I can tell you from very personal knowledge, New York City has virtually no construction right now. And we're not only talking about office buildings, of which there are many. We're talking about housing, moderate income housing, low income housing, even high income housing, where you create jobs, you create so many other things. They buy carpet, they buy furniture, they buy refrigerators, they buy other things that fuel the economy. And incentive has to be put back into the construction of things that are
Tonight,
needed.
as I outline the next steps we must take as a country, we must honestly acknowledge the circumstances we inherited. 94 million Americans are out of the labor force. Over 43 million people are now living in poverty, and over 43 million Americans are on food stamps. More than 1 in 5 people in their prime working years are not working. We have the worst financial recovery in 65 years. In the last 8 years, the past administration has put on more new debt than nearly all of the other presidents combined. We've lost more than 1/4 of our manufacturing jobs since NAFTA was approved, and we've lost 60,000 factories since China joined the World Trade Organization in 2001. Our trade deficit in goods with the world last year was nearly $800 billion. And overseas, we have inherited a series of tragic foreign policy disasters. Solving these and so many other pressing problems will require us to work past the differences of party. It will require us to tap into the American spirit that has overcome every challenge throughout our long and storied history. But to accomplish our goals at home and abroad, we must restart the engine of the American economy, making it easier for companies to do business in the United States and much, much harder for companies to leave our country.
This documentary seeks to answer that question, at least in part. To do that, we must understand how it was infiltrated and co-opted by a little racist Marxist state posing as the fulfillment of biblical prophecy, Israel. We must understand how this little state, based on an ethereal form of Jewish identity politics, has the world by the throat via technology, and we must understand the specifics of how it transferred that technology to itself. We must understand the founding of Russia, Israel and China as a product of the House of Rothschild private intelligence network operating through business and financial guilds and roundtable groups and lower-order secret societies such as Yale's Skull and Bones. We must understand that communism is a creation of central bankers designed to centralise command and control, not liberate the oppressed working classes. We must understand how this control system will morph into varying forms to suit the conditions of the day, but the same figures predominate. We must understand Israel's emerging role as cybersecurity watchdog and leader in the fields of robotics, AI, cryptocurrencies and the application of blockchain technologies to a myriad of online activities in the emerging New World technological order. We must understand how this technology is being readied to herd the world's population into the UN Habitat Smart Cities program, where human beings will be chipped, surveilled, psychologically conditioned, vaccinated, sterilised and supervised by a combination of AI and robotics, designed in Israel, manufactured in China. We must understand the politics of fear, psychology, spying and above all the art of lying with a straight face to an electorate in a permanent childlike state of infantile dependence and deference to authority figures. An electorate paralysed by fear, hiding behind their keyboards and big screen TVs. They believe they slay dragons in their imaginary world of shadow banned AI bot friends lists on Facebook and Twitter, disengaged from the 3D world of political civil action. Soviet-era active measures at its finest. They blame commies, fascists, the alt-right, Antifa, the Black Pope, lizards, flat earth, the deep state and even their mothers. They pray for deliverance and to be raptured to safety in the end times. They await a fatherly Messiah hero come to dispense justice. They're always waiting. Disengaged, pondering imponderables, working out, attending their psychotherapist, brainwashed by organised religion to sit, do nothing and await the Messiah, always waiting. If we can't face it and name it, God can't fix it. and an endless stream of messiah figures will lead us into technological bondage from which the human race may never escape. We need to name these things, and we need an urgent political dialogue on the ramifications for the entire planet, from street cafes to the corridors of power. We need this discussion, and we need it urgently. And finally, discussing issues of Jewish power and political Zionism brings forth the usual character assassination of anti-Semite, to name but a few assassination techniques. In this regard, British Jewish activist Paul Eisen says it best. The crime against the Palestinian people is being committed by a Jewish state, with Jewish soldiers using weapons displaying Jewish religious symbols and with the full support and complicity of the overwhelming mass of organised Jews worldwide. But to name Jews as responsible for this crime seems impossible to do. Eisen's enlightening 2004 essay titled aptly Jewish Power forms the ethical and moral ground when approaching this sensitive issue. People must be individually and collectively held responsible for their actions and inaction in such dire times. The matters discussed have political and even spiritual ramifications, but the essence is simply one of a criminal investigation which involves acknowledging a prima facie case of wrongdoing exists, then moving forward with indictments based on reasonable suspicion and the gathering of evidence. This is not a mob justice issue, and the rule of law remains and will remain. There will be no repeat of 1933 to 1937 and beyond. Though to be sure, Benjamin Netanyahu and Vladimir Putin have both appeared extremely excited at the prospect of a mass exodus of highly educated white European and American Jews into both Israel and Russia. If it comes to that, watch for bagel crumbs by smashed synagogue windows in Brooklyn. And now to the question, how did a tiny little arrogant state built on notions of religious and racial supremacism become a seeming world power and make successive US administrations perform like a trained seal?